Who has a question or comment for our energy team? Anna.
Did you guys study abroad, or like, yeah, if you guys studied abroad, did you find that helpful in whatever you're doing now?
All right. So I will not repeat the question, but it's something about study abroad. We'll do shortish answers. Ben.
I didn't study abroad. I took 2 semesters off to work on political campaigns. So that was sort of my version of that, I guess. And yes, it was incredibly useful. Having a little bit of diversity of experiences, I think, really valuable.
There's no reason to leave America.
The opposite of that. I did a lot of studying in different places when I was in school, and I did a program my junior year that actually really helped me figure out what I wanted to do. It was through the International Honors Program, it was called, and I did a program called Cities in the 21st Century. So it talked a lot about urban planning and got me excited about transportation, and we traveled to 3 different countries during that program, which was really cool. And during my time, I also UVM has some other classes. If you can't study abroad for a whole semester, like you can do a summer class abroad or over breaks and stuff. And I did a couple of those too. And for me, it was really valuable, again, because it just gave me diversity and experience and allowed me to, go to a place that I would maybe not have an opportunity to go to and meet, the university sort of sets it up for you. So you go and you meet these really cool people that you probably would never necessarily have the opportunity to talk to if they didn't set it up. Like I was talking to city planners in New Delhi, India. Like I would never have the opportunity to do that. So I would highly recommend studying abroad or trying to do something abroad, especially through the university, if you want that kind of structured experience.
Did you do that through SAT? Yeah. So I went through the same program, but I went to Tanzania. And yes, it certainly had an influence on, what I decided to do ultimately. I worked with, for the program that I was in, I did a research project in sort of the Western Usambara, which is in the mountains of Tanzania. And I did a research project on agricultural markets. And at that point, I was really interested in ecological economics. And so I was looking at sort of the impacts on rural farmers in those areas. And another thing that sort of came into play was climate change and how much it was impacting these individuals who really, depend so highly on the seasons. So extreme weather and all that kind of stuff was impacting them, and yes, inadvertently had an impact on what I chose to do. But yeah, so I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to do so.
I did not study abroad. I wanted to, it just didn't work out credit-wise and everything. So instead, after I graduated, I spent 6 months teaching English in Spain. So that was kind of my version of studying abroad.
I as well did not study abroad at all, but looking back, I really wish I did. I left the North American continent for the first time in May and realized how beautiful the rest of the world is, and we live such a fairly great and peaceful life here in the U.S., so I would recommend, if you can, do it, but if not, don't worry.
Ellie.
Just very short, some of you answered this. What degrees did you guys actually go through when you were here at UVM? And did you guys pursue minors as well, or?
I'll just repeat the question. What was our majors and minors? So my major was environmental studies, and my concentration was in sustainability studies, but I kind of changed sustainability studies into a new title, sustainable energy, which I think in the ENVS program, it's highly sought out to kind of tweak it, and I think that definitely helped me with getting a job, since you can put energy on, and I have an energy job now, so work it for how you can.
So ENVS major, what was your minor?
I was in CALS, which is Agriculture and Life Sciences, and you don't need to have a minor in CALS.
I was environmental studies and I had a concentration in wildlife biology. And at the time, I did an individually designed major with a thesis. So I think they've changed that around.
No, you can still do, Tom, right? You can do it in EBS, environmental studies.
That's a choice now that we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, so I studied natural resources in the Rubenstein School, and there's a concentration within that. Is anybody in Rubenstein? Okay. And my concentration was in planning and management at the time. When I graduated.
I did environmental studies, and my minor was green building and community design. And I guess my focus in my major was sustainable development, which was also one that I kind of created.
I'm in the BA engineering program, and my minor will probably be green building.
We have a number of engineering majors here, don't we? 2 or 3 anyway.
So environmental studies and political science. Through a quirk in how I got there, I actually ended up getting 2 degrees. So it was in CALS for environmental studies and arts and sciences for political science. So sort of had to do extra distributional requirements. But as a result, I have a BA and a BS in the same amount of time that it would have taken me otherwise. So that's cool.
All right, others, questions for these guys on anything related to any of this? Michael?
Did any of you guys go to graduate school or are considering graduate school, and I don't know, maybe some pros and cons that you guys have experienced?
And we'll start with you, and for Eric, maybe just repeat the question.
So the question was around grad school and if any of us have gone to grad school, if we're considering it, and our thoughts on the pros and cons. So I have not gone to grad school. I guess I'd consider Green Core, the program that I mentioned, akin to a graduate degree in organizing. It's not accredited or anything like that, but it's a 1-year intensive experience focused on a particular set of skills in a similar way to that grad school would be. I have friends who are going into grad school or law school now. I also know people who are, who've gone through a similar path to mine, that have run, Rock the Vote, Democracy for America, Move On, Greenpeace, with a bachelor's and a lot of skills. So I'm not knocking grad school or law school, but I don't think it's fundamentally necessary to make a difference in the world. It's just about what path you're most interested in going on.
Well, not everyone has to comment on this, but Gwen, go ahead.
No.
Okay. Tell us.
I haven't, but I've been thinking about it. I think, similar to what Ben said, I've been trying to figure out if, I'm looking at job postings for things that I would maybe want to do, and a lot of them do have a requirement for a master's degree, so that's why I've been considering it. But I think, there are other jobs that I'm interested in that, right, if you have a bachelor's and you have relevant experience, it might not be necessary. So I would say, if you see what your ideal job is and you look around and it sounds like everyone has a master's degree, if they're doing that, then it might be necessary. Otherwise, focus on maybe skill building, and that seems to be really valuable too.
Me either. Do you have another? Should we go for another?
I have insight, I guess. So I'm not in grad school, as I'm sure you can tell. But I'm surrounded by a lot of people who have master's degrees, many who don't. And I feel like the marketplace is very competitive today, and grad school can set you apart from others. And there are a whole slew of money issues with going to grad school and potentially getting it paid for. Who knows? I'm not very knowledgeable in that suit, but I seek accreditation in many different things. One of them, for example, is Building Performance Institute, BPI, which has a lot to do with weatherization, and I think that could set me apart in the future from a future potential career. But I think grad school can lead you in a certain way, as well as if you want to get your PhD and do research. If you're very intensive in research and you enjoy that, you should definitely go for it and don't prevent yourself from doing what you really want to do.
All right, others. Who haven't we heard from? Catherine.
What types of activities were you involved on campus, or were you involved on campus when you were a student?
So the question was, what type of activities were we doing while at UVM? sophomore year, I started writing for the Vermont Cynic, which is the school newspaper, and I started covering the energy and environment beat. And I really enjoyed covering anything from renewable energy on campus to the potential smoking ban to I even wrote something about 420, which was a lot of fun, and lots of different topics. And through that, it really helped my writing, but also getting out into the field. And I interviewed Phil Baruth, who's an English teacher here, who's also a state representative, if I'm senator. So it's really cool. You get to meet some great people and really brush up on your writing skills. I also did work for the Student Alumni Association, which really didn't impact my energy side, but I definitely enjoyed doing that. And when I was a senior, I interned at Common Sense Energy and doing weatherization work. So I was going into attics and blowing in cellulose and putting up OSB board in places. But it's definitely a good time to. Oh, yeah. So that's an interesting thing. I was going to do a thesis, and Richard was going to be my advisor. I was going to do a thesis on snowmaking energy efficiency. And Richard was taking the bus home one day, and his friend Stu.
Notice it all happens on the bus.
His friend Stu saw this proposal that I wrote and gave Richard his card, and Richard gave it to me, and I ended up getting a internship at a consulting firm here in Burlington, which is a great insight into the energy efficiency world, but also gave me an idea that I wanted to start off in the nonprofit world and kind of make a difference in the low-income community. And it's cool to see the for-profit side and the nonprofit side. It's really unique.
I was not the most involved student when I was at UVM. I had a work-study job, and then I also held a job outside of school, and I was part of the ski and snowboard club. But, I repeat, one of the best things you can do is maintain good relationships with your professors, and that's kind of how I wrote my thesis, was because I took a class with a professor who kind of wanted to continue working with me, and I had an internship with his organization, and that's sort of how I stayed involved.
So I was a part of the student government, I guess, SGA, and that was a really great experience for me. It was kind of like, all my friends gave me a hard time about being, I guess I had like a really intense campaign at the time, and they were like, this is a little too much, but I was, it was fun. And then I was also part of Alpha Zeta, which is an agricultural fraternity on campus. So I did volunteer work through that, and I had a brief stint with the Nordic ski team, but it was short-lived, so club, not the varsity team.
I was on the track team and did some other things, and I guess the things that were helpful to like my academic interests and I guess my job, I was a TA for Richard's class, which I said, and I think that was a really cool opportunity. If you guys ever have the opportunity to do that, it's a nice way to, get to know some other students and just have an experience on the other side of a class, sort of, and to just stay fresh with what was going on. I did it for energy alternatives, and I felt like it was just good for keeping me up with the current events related to energy topics, because I wasn't great at, sitting and like reading energy news all the time. I did a number of internships when I was in school, I guess, as well, and those were helpful to sort of just try out different things that I thought could be interesting job paths.
Go ahead. Did you jump in, Nate?
What?
You've been so busy as a working all
Yeah, I don't really have time for it's kind of time consuming for me to get here. I'm usually traveling 45 minutes at the end of the day to get to class on time, so I don't really have much time.
You've probably done more outside of school than most of us during the same time period. I didn't do a ton of on-campus activities. I started to my freshman year, and I don't even remember why, just sort of fizzled out. So mostly focused on academics, except I did a couple of off-campus internships or jobs in similar fields. So as I mentioned, I took a couple of semesters off, one to intern for Dean for America, which was back in 2004 when Howard Dean was running for president. Got to see that crash and burn. That was fun. And then I also took a semester off to work on a different local political campaign. The other thing was an internship with Democracy for America, which was actually an outgrowth of Dean's campaign, and that's actually where I was interning with the training director there at the time, who was an alum of Green Corps, the program that I mentioned earlier. So that's how I made that connection. I guess I'd say just two other things very briefly about this. So one is, I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's definitely not true. It's both, but it's definitely not just what you know. Like, you need to have relationships with people and cultivate them, and, you know, which is sort of a fancy way of saying, like, get to know people and stay in touch. And that's actually how I ended up getting most of those opportunities, was because I took the time to get to know people who seemed like, you know, they did cool stuff and I might want to be like them when I grew up. And then I got opportunities through those relationships. Last thing is, shameless plug, I'll write this on the board, but VPIRG has an internship program. We also have a summer canvas. If either of those seem interesting to you, if you're interested in energy policy or other state level, you know, political activity, definitely get in touch. I'll put my email up there. Also, an email for our Katie Gallagher, our fantastic campus organizer. So send us an email.
All right, questions or comments from these guys? Deke.
My question, I am wondering, we can talk a lot about kind of the intellectual side of this stuff, but I'm wondering what kind of improvements you would like to see in the kind of practical implementation of energy efficiency.
Say that again.
So we can like talk all day about reducing energy usage and all this stuff, but I'm wondering about ways that it could be improved from a practical point of view. That, like, I know contractors that just won't put in on-demand hot water because it's more time consuming or something like that. So I'm wondering if there's a practical side of it that we aren't thinking about in these.
Generally, everything that you do, I mean, every decision that I make or that, or a developer that I work for makes is based on a decision that is kind of something that you make with a homeowner. So, like, if somebody wanted an on-demand hot water heater, like if a homeowner wanted an on-demand hot water heater, they would probably go over that with their plumber. That wouldn't really, I don't really know how to answer your question in terms of that, but I can tell you that I did start a project last month where it was like a $250,000 renovation to this old house up in Lincoln. And so we started gutting the house, and we found some things like a lot of rot in the sills, and a lot of the framing was just garbage, and you could push on a piece of baseboard, you could pry against a piece of baseboard and you'd be pushing the stud out of the wall. And we basically had a meeting with the homeowner and decided that she should probably tear her house down rather than put $250,000 into it, basically, which wouldn't cover a lot of the things that we were finding that would have to be taken care of, excess of the budget. So basically, she's going to tear her house, or we're going to tear her house down in the spring, and then we're going to rebuild something new that's going to be a lot tighter. And instead of putting $250,000 into an old house, that is basically like completely inverted because all of the footings for all of the columns have sunk into the ground significantly, and then somebody put a new roof over that, a metal roof over that. So, you know, once we start to jack up our house, the roof is going to buckle all over the place.
So that's a perfect transition just for a minute to the courses that are offered, because there is one practical construction house building course that's being offered in the spring that you would not find on your regular scheduled courses. Do you know Chuck Reese? Have you ever run across him? Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, it's on the back here somewhere, but in general, see you soon. In general, UVM is going to have more policy, design, education type courses and less of the hands-on courses that Quinn's talking about or that you'll get at. But I did want to flag for you on the sheet that I passed out that Chuck Reese, who builds net zero homes, is teaching a course on building net zero homes here in the spring. And I don't know if your other energy-related courses, you guys have heard, of course, about some of the courses that I teach, but other courses that are out there that are useful. We did pull the engineering courses, and they're on a longer list, but some of those are going to have engineering requirements. I'll get into that. But so anything on classes that these guys have taken or other networking that they've done that you want to ask about? Yeah, Melissa.
I know in my degree,
Can you grab the mic?
Alyssa. I don't know if this is still true, but Yestermorrow is a design build school that's in Waterbury, Vermont, and I was able to get some credit, or Waitsfield, yeah. I was able to get some credit towards my my minor taking classes there, and I took a design build class, and that was really because I was interested in green building as well, and so I think there are some opportunities to get some like hands-on practical knowledge too. Like I said, I don't know if you can still get credit for that, but that was something I was able to do.
I think that rather than, and this is my opinion, I know people that have gone to Yestermorrow, and I think that the other option for learning things that are hands-on is you can get a job, an entry-level position doing those things, and you actually will get paid a small amount of money to learn, rather than paying somebody else to teach you skills that you could be getting paid to learn. And I mean, the more experience you have, the more qualified you are to do that kind of work.
And probably the fastest growing part of this market is the job of actually doing the work of installing. I don't know, you would know maybe, Ben, if that's true, but.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is we need a lot more people doing the installation, installing solar, all of that. If we're actually going to get to the kind of energy goals that we need to get to deal with global warming, we absolutely need more people doing that kind of work, for sure.
All right, so other questions or comments for these guys? We, believe it or not, in a few minutes here, we're going to have food arrive. And anyone who wants to stick around who's not in the regular class is welcome to. And then we'll do sort of smaller, if one of these jobs and careers types interest you, we'll do a smaller group. Jenny.
I guess it's stand up.
Yeah.
I was wondering for everybody that's up there, what was the most beneficial thing that you did during your job search as I'm a senior? I'm going through doing a lot of different things. Like, what was the thing that you go back on and saying, oh, this helped me the most? Like, was it a LinkedIn profile, or was it the way you did your resume, or something along those lines? Is there anything that's stand out that you guys did that you think helped you find your first job?
So I don't think LinkedIn existed when I was, so maybe things have changed. I guess I'd say the single most important thing I did unequivocally was meeting and staying in touch with, to a story I told a minute ago, a fellow named Arshad Hassan. He was the training director at Democracy for America. I met him not even at anything related to an internship I had or anything through UVM. They were doing a training on organizing. It was like a weekend-long thing. I went to it. He seemed awesome and was doing something that was kind of like what I wanted to do. So I got his number. We ended up hanging out at the bar like a few weeks later because he lives in Burlington. And a year later, he connected me with a job, and 6 months after that, I got an internship with him. So it's like finding the right person and making sure you don't lose track of them.
That's a great question. I think sort of what was most beneficial for me was I grew up with my dad was a carpenter, and just growing up as a kid, I was always on job sites with him, and I kind of just picked a lot of stuff up and remembered it because that was what I thought was interesting. And so basically when I went to work for Catamount North Construction and I had my interview with him, he had looked at my resume, and I had done a lot of, I had worked for a company that did metal fabrication in high school quite a bit, and so, you know, he kind of knew the two things are a little bit interrelated. And he said basically he gets a lot of kids, like college age kids, that apply for jobs when he posts them on Craigslist, and you know, they show up but they can't read a tape measure, and they don't know the names of any building materials or tools, and they don't know how to use tools, and they don't understand the safety association, and so yeah, basically it's just kind of being around the stuff and picking it up and remembering.
I guess a couple of things that were helpful for me. I mean, one thing was just sort of, I just like looked around a lot for companies that were doing things that sounded interesting. Like when I got an internship with the Regional Planning Commission, just because a paid internship, and ended up working there for a little while just because I thought planning sounded interesting, and I just got in touch with them, and they weren't even really hiring, but they said, you know, sure, if you want to come do some work for us, you can, we'll pay you a little bit. And, you know, it just worked out for me to work there for a little while. And I think like, if you if you see a person who's doing something that's interesting or a company that just sounds cool to you, like reach out to them. And I think people appreciate just genuine enthusiasm about what they do. And if you call someone up, like, you know, it sounds like your job is really cool, you know, if there are opportunities, let me know, or just, can I talk to you about it? I think that kind of stuff's really helpful. And I know just another little thing, like when we've hired at CarShare, I know I've heard my boss talk a lot about how cover letters are really important to her, because it's kind of the place that you can really like add your personal sort of words as to why you're interested in a job. And I've seen her just like ignore people who've had cover letters that were clearly not very genuine, or just that they didn't put a lot of time into. Because I think that's the place where you can say, you know, I'm really passionate about energy work, that, you know, I really want to work here, whatever. Because your resume shows some things, but I think the cover letter is a good place to sort of expand on that. And I mean, I've seen that multiple times, just people like ignoring applicants because their cover letter just didn't seem very enthusiastic. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I would echo that for sure. The cover letter is very important. Definitely have a couple cover letters just so you have like, I don't know, some options. But yeah, so in my senior year, I took NR, I actually don't remember, 206, I think. It's a senior seminar course, and I had the opportunity to chat with a lot of different people from the community, and that was sort of where this like Intel meeting idea kind of started. So I had the opportunity to just hear about people who work in Vermont and do really cool jobs, and got to sort of think through what I was looking for in a company. And what is great about SunCommon, and one of the things that I love the most about it, is that we're mission driven and everybody is passionate about what they do. I don't go and just, you know, work from 9 to 5 and then it's over. Some days I work 12 hours, you know, I work a lot of weekends. I do that kind of stuff. And I'm really happy to do it because I love what I'm doing. And so in my job search, that was something that I was looking for. And yeah, I don't know. I definitely, like I said before, I reached out to a lot of people, had the opportunity to have a lot of informational meetings. And I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask someone. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to them. People know that they were once in your shoes, and they're more than willing to help. And I'm, you know, if anybody has any questions, like, feel free to reach out to me. But I just graduated, but yeah, just be able to reach out to people and try something that you might not necessarily have thought was something you would have gone into. So I didn't know specifically where I was going to be in the renewable energy sector, but I knew that that was what I was passionate about. So I sort of looked through a lot of different avenues and spent a lot of time doing online job searches. But if you know the person that you, like if you can find a contact for your job that you want to apply for, it's much better than just doing an online application. So if you can find somebody's email, or at least give a call and say, hey, I'm really interested in this position. Can you put me in touch with someone? And at least get the email of that person to say, hey, I just want to, introduce myself. I applied for this job, or am interested in this job. It makes a difference than just applying to a computer or something.
You guys all pretty much covered it. For me, it was networking that really helped me. I knew someone who told me that this job was available, and I applied based on her recommendation. So networking. And then another thing, I was actually chatting with my boss, and she was saying that one of the reasons that she chose me for this position was that I was so willing to kind of go for it. And I didn't have renewable energy experience specifically, but the fact that I was like so able and willing and open to the like new experiences and trying new things, that was kind of what really helped me. So
I didn't know it, but looking back on it, there were a lot of courses I took here at UVM that pointed to the company where I work now, VEIC. And when I say that, I took a service learning course with Richard, and our community partner was a woman named Karen Glitman at VEIC doing transportation work. And I now work alongside her, and I also took a course named Vermont Energy Systems with Logan Brown, who also works at VEIC. So little did I know back then I would be working at that company, but it's because I kept in contact with these people. And when you have these professors that really shape you and motivate you to do what you want to do, it should be almost a motivation for you to become friends with them or professional members of your life, because college is a great time to be social. I definitely knew that, but at the same time, come junior year, you really wonder what you're going to do in 2 years or 3, however long it takes. But just, take your contacts professionally and stay in touch.